MTV's Wrestling Society X may have only aired 9 episodes back in 2007, but many of its stars went on to long and memorable careers. Before he was a 6-time world champion in WWE, a member of The Shield, or the first ever NXT champion, Seth Rollins wrestled under the name Tyler Black, and one of his stops during his indie run in the 2000s was in Wrestling Society X. Black was only 20 years old at the time, and just 2 years into his career. Alongside Jimmy Jacobs, he was half of the tag team Do It For Her, a pair of Lotharios who flirted with women in the crowd.
I started out Tyler Black. I didn't know what Tyler Black was. I don't know who he was. I was a wrestler, you know?
Shortly after Black taped all of his matches for WSX, he made his debut for Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and then less than a year later, he debuted in Ring of Honor. He went on to win both the PWG and ROH World Tag Team Championships with Jacobs, before winning the ROH World Championship in 2010. His ROH work quickly caught the eye of WWE. By the end of that year, Black signed a WWE developmental contract, became Seth Rollins, and shot to superstardom. Black's partner in DFIH, the more sensitive and emo of the two, was Jimmy Jacobs. Jacobs was a couple years older than Black and brought a little more experience. He had already established a character in promotions like Ring of Honor, and he brought it to WSX. No, he wasn't able to cut promos drenched in other people's blood, but at least he was able to friend girls in the crowd on MySpace. In the years since, Jacobs became a mainstay in ROH before taking a writing job in WWE, which came to an end when he appeared in a photo with members of the Bullet Club. Jacobs would go on to work in various backstage roles for companies including TNA and AEW, and has remained active in places like ROH and Revolution Championship Wrestling in Indiana. The first man to ever set foot in a Wrestling Society X ring was none other than Matt Sydal, accompanied by his girlfriend Lizzie Valentine. Sydal had already traveled around the world by the time he showed up in WSX, but mainly called Ring of Honor his home, where he was a member of Generation Next. Alongside Roderick Strong and Alex Shelley, Sydal would go on to have a record of 3 wins and 2 losses in WSX, but the run would be pivotal to his career. After WSX ended, Sydal signed with WWE and became Evan Bourne, one of the most popular high flyers during the company's PG era. After leaving WWE in 2013, he would once again travel the world while having a run in TNA and also returning to ROH. In 2020, he signed with AEW, where he has worked as an in-ring performer and in a backstage capacity. The other half of the first ever WSX match, Jack Evans, knew Matt Sydal very well. He too was a member of Generation Next in Ring of Honor. By that point in his career, Evans was already seen as one of the best high flyers in the world, capable of performing moves that literally no one else in the business was able to do. He carved out a unique fan base that would follow him around the world. Evans defeated Sydal in the first ever WSX match and was booked as one of the promotion's biggest stars. He never lost a match.
It was just some of the weirdest. It was one of the weirdest collections of wrestlers ever. Like, it was just such a strange locker room.
Despite being from Parkland, Washington, Evans has spent the majority of his career since WSX in Mexico, working for AAA. He also was on all 4 seasons of Lucha Underground, wrestled in Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan, and has made stops in PWG. He was a day 1 member of the AEW roster in 2019, but left at the end of his contract in 2022. He worked sporadically for various independent promotions since AAA was purchased by WWE in April 2025. If you're starting a new promotion with a TV time slot, it always helps to have someone on the roster who fans are familiar with to draw some eyeballs, and that usually means a former WWE star. For Wrestling Society X, the man who filled that slot was Sean Waltman, who combined his WWE name X-Pac and his WCW name Six to wrestle as Six-Pac. Waltman was heavily featured in the first few episodes, even competing in the match to determine the first ever WSX champion, which he lost due to being given a tombstone piledriver into an exploding casket. WSX loved making things explode. Waltman worked the indies after the end of WSX, finally retiring in 2022 after making some cameos for Game Changer Wrestling. He's now a 2-time WWE Hall of Famer as a member of both D-Generation X and the New World Order. Lately, he mainly features on the convention circuit. The WSX roster also included a star ECW fans knew well, former ECW World Heavyweight Champion Justin Credible. But his time in the promotion didn't last past the first episode. He was let go from his contract before the rest of the season was taped at the end of 2006. Credible was a major part of the first ever WSX Rumble, which main evented the premiere. He entered at number 1 and mixed it up with every other entrant. After being released from his WSX contract, Credible spent a few months in WWE as part of its revived ECW brand. Since then, Credible has stayed active on the independent scene, but he has had his own personal struggles that have led to stints in rehab and jail. Credible opened up about his life during an appearance on the Eyes Appear podcast with his longtime friend Francine. He revealed that he still competes regularly on the weekends. In one of Teddy Hart's first promos on the show, he said,
"Wrestling Society X, I have a reputation."
That has only gotten truer in the years since. The oldest grandson of the legendary Stu Hart is one of the most controversial wrestlers of the 21st century and is widely considered to be the best example of someone who got in the way of his own immense potential. Hart was positioned as one of the top stars in WSX, specifically the tag team division alongside M-Dog 20, Matt Cross as the Filth and the Fury. Had the show lasted longer than one season, Hart could have been the biggest name attached to the brand. In the nearly 20 years since WSX closed up shop, Hart has been hired and fired by more promotions than we can list here. He has also faced legal problems. He now primarily competes in Real Canadian Wrestling based in Edmonton, Alberta. Another familiar face on WSX was the painted mug of Vampiro, who spent the last several years of WCW's existence feuding with Sting and winning the tag titles alongside the great Muta, among other things. Vampiro was the inaugural WSX champion after putting Waltman in the aforementioned exploding casket. A spot which was removed from the episode involving him getting set on fire also was reportedly a factor, along with flagging ratings in Wrestling Society X getting cancelled. Behind the scenes, Vampiro was also the booker for WSX. He'd go on to hold the same position in AAA, where he spent most of his career in the years since. Vampiro was also on the commentary team for Lucha Underground and has also made appearances in other promotions, including the NWA. In 2024, Vampiro announced that he would embark on a retirement tour, but his time in the ring hasn't finished. He still works Mexican independent shows to this day. The man who set Vampiro's hair on fire was Ricky Banderas. He used several books of flash paper instead of the typical 1 or 2 sheets. Banderas also became the second and final WSX champion after defeating Vampiro, thanks to another exploding coffin. Vampiro and Banderas went on to do more together. In Lucha Underground, Banderas wrestled under a mask as the mythic Mil Muertes. They also spent a lot of time together in AAA, where Banderas still works under the name El Mesias. Other promotions where the Puerto Rican star has worked include TNA and CMLL. Outside of AAA, Banderas works for various Mexican independent promotions under several of his past names. Wrestling Society X was shot in Los Angeles, which meant that some of the standouts of Southern California's indie scene briefly got a chance to shine on MTV. One of those standouts was Scorpio Sky, whose character was the best athlete in the history of his high school. Sky would walk to the ring with plaques celebrating his achievements, signing autographs for people lucky enough to get close enough. Sadly, his record ended up being anything but stellar. He finished his time in the promotion with just 1 win.
Wrestling Society X, I had a couple good moments on, but all of them were really, really small roles.
Fortunately, life after WSX proved to be much more rewarding. His alliance with Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian as SoCal Uncensored not only led to a lot of success in Ring of Honor, the group would become core founding members of the AEW roster in 2019. Sky and Kazarian were the first ever AEW Tag Team Champions, and Sky went on to hold the TNT title twice. His momentum has slowed in recent years, but he is still featured on AEW and ROH TV with the group Skyflight. Hollywood, Alabama's own Human Tornado might not be well known to fans who haven't really dug deep into indie lore, but if you look back into the history of companies like PWG, you'll see Tornado's name pop up everywhere. He showed up in WSX with his most famous gimmick, a blaxploitation character straight out of the 1970s who just so happened to be one of the quickest and naturally athletic wrestlers of the 2000s. In WSX, Tornado's only loss came at the hands of Six-Pac, and was even involved in the only time limit draw in the promotion's history. Nowadays, a human tornado is semi-retired. He did show up in XPW when that promotion resurfaced in 2022. He was also part of the Micromania Wrestling Tour as recently as 2024, and has made cameo appearances for GCW. If you really want proof that Tornado was someone who could have been a much bigger star, go and watch his performance as El Snowflake in Nacho Libre. Matt Classic had a truly arcane backstory. He was a 1960s wrestler who went into a 40-year coma and woke up in 2006, raring to get back into the ring. Only Wrestling Society X would take a chance on him, and when Classic got into the ring, he wrestled a throwback style. Sadly, it didn't work out for him. He never won a single WSX match, and his matches only aired on the online-exclusive WS Extra shows. Matt Classic, of course, was not really from the 1960s. He was a comedy gimmick portrayed by a wrestler well known for his comedic chops, Colt Cabana.
We didn't even have microphones. What is a microphone?
Just look into the camera and
Look into the what?
The Chicago native is one of the greatest journeymen in the history of wrestling. He has wrestled for nearly every promotion you could possibly think of, including a brief stint as Scotty Goldman in WWE. He still pops up on independent shows around the world in between his full-time position in AEW, where he usually sticks to working in dark matches. Cabana has transitioned into the role of an AEW producer and coach over the past few years. Japan's Dragon Gate promotion was making a lot of waves online by the mid-2000s. Its stars arguably changed the way American fans watched wrestling with their trip to Ring of Honor in the spring of 2006. After that, everyone wanted a piece of Dragon Gate, and WSX was fortunate enough to get access to Masato Yoshino and Genki Horiguchi. Their WSX run wasn't particularly noteworthy outside of the fact they won the main event of the never-aired 10th episode. They defeated The Filth and The Fury in an exploding steel cage match. However, it's what both men did afterwards that cemented them as two of the most influential wrestlers of their generation. In both Japan and the wider wrestling world, Yoshino was regarded as the fastest wrestler in the world before he retired in 2021. He's one of the more decorated wrestlers in the history of Dragon Gate, holding a total of 27 championships, including the top prize, the Open the Dream Gate Championship 4 times. Horiguchi is also one of the most decorated wrestlers in Dragon Gate history. He has been 1/3 of the Open the Triangle Gate champions 13 times. As of the making of this video, he's still wrestling in Dragon Gate.